Hello children, welcome to another new session of 10th class biological science, and today's topic is heredity from parent to progeny part 1. Let us discuss the introduction part of heredity. So children, what do you mean by heredity? Heredity means the characters which are transmitted from the parent to progeny. Now what is progeny? Progeny is nothing but the offsprings, the children. So when we observe our world, we see two opposite observations. What are they? We see the fantastic variety of life and also the similarities between them. Like, we all are human beings and we all are similar, but along with the similarity, there are a lot of differences. Maybe the color of the eye, the shape of the ears, the color of the hair, etc. So we need to understand the above two characters of life to understand how life evolves. So to understand the variety and the similarity, we need to know how life evolves. Children, we have discussed reproduction in our previous classes. So let us once again recall what is reproduction and the types of reproduction. What is reproduction? It is the biological process by which new individual organism, nothing but the offsprings, are produced from the parents. And in reproduction, we are having two types, that is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Let us discuss about asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, single organism, nothing but the single parent cell is involved, and during the process, the cell divides into two daughter cells. That means the parent cell divides into two daughter cells, and you know children, the two daughter cells are the exact copies of the parent cell. So in asexual reproduction, a single parent cell involves in the process of reproduction and two daughter cells are produced, and the daughter cells are the exact copies. And children, over here there are no new characters formed. Now let us discuss the other part of reproduction, that is sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, we see male and female. So the female organism or the female human being produces egg cells, whereas the male produces the sperm. The egg and the sperm undergo the process of fertilization, and as a process of fertilization, zygote is developed. The zygote undergoes further development and embryo is formed. So children, over here, as the two organisms are involved, the embryo formed will have the characters of both the female as well as the male parent. So that means over here the new characters are formed, whereas in asexual reproduction new characters are not formed, as the daughter cells are the exact copies of the parent cell, whereas in sexual reproduction the progeny or the offsprings are having the characters of the both parents. So the asexual as well as sexual reproduction differ in this minute point. Now let us discuss how new characters are formed. So children, how are the new characters formed? New characters are formed due to genetic variation. First of all, let us discuss what are variations. So children, we are going to school every day, and in the school there are girls, boys, teachers and many other people in the school. But even in the single class where you are sitting, for example, if you are in 10th class, you find the girls around you, the boys around you, and you also have variation in your colors, variation in the hair, variation in the ears, variation in the color of eyes, and etc. But the common thing is we all are human beings, but there are minute variations. So now let us see what is genetic variation. Genetic variation means the variations which are related to the genetic material. So we are various, we are different because there are genetic variations in us. So new characters are formed due to genetic variation. Now how these genetic variations are formed? These genetic variations are formed due to the recombination of DNA. So recombination of DNA is nothing but the transfer of the genetic material. Are the new characters inherited? So children, let us discuss the word inherited. Inherited is nothing but the transfer of the characters from one generation to other generation. One generation to other generation means from the parents to the progeny, nothing but from the parents to the children. So, new characters are transferred from parents to children. So, are all the new characters inherited? No, all the new characters are not inherited. The characters which are developed due to genetic variations or due to mutations are inherited. So, children, keep it in mind, the characters which are due to genetic variation and due to mutations are inherited, that is transferred from the parents to the progeny. The new characters formed due to the change in non-reproductive tissues or the bodily changes are not inherited, that is they won't be inherited from the parent to the progeny. So, children, the question here is, are the new characters inherited? So, the answer will be the characters which are caused due to genetic variations and mutations are inherited, whereas the characters which are caused due to the non-reproductive tissues or the bodily changes are not inherited. Do new characters play a role in evolution? So, children, as we all discussed that new characters are formed due to genetic variations, are these characters used or involved in the process of evolution? So, nature itself will select if they are useful to the species. Yes, children, if the species is benefited by the new character, then the nature will retain those new characters, and due to the attainment of the new characters, the species will develop into a new organism. That means new species will be formed due to the result of the new characters. And these new characters lead to evolution, and children, keep it in mind, the process of evolution is always slow and it is continuous. Let us discuss, these are the general questions which we have to discuss, children, like how many similar characters do you find among you and your parents? Now let us take an example. Let me take an example of myself, like how many similar characters do you find among you and your parents? For example, I have many similar characters to my father, very less similar characters to my mother. So, you can take yourself and compare yourself to your parents, that is your mother and father. Is there any character in you that is neither like your father or like your mother? Yes, sometimes there will be a new character. For example, the both parents may be a bit fair, whereas the child may be a bit dark. Because how is it possible? It is possible because of variation. Where do you think that you got such a character from? So, children, as we have discussed earlier, genetic variation. So, the character which is not present in your mother or your father but is present in the offspring or in the child, it is because of genetic variation. Children, we have this activity in your textbook. So, let us discuss about this. We have the character, that is color of the eye. Next column is in me, in my mother or father, in my brother or sister, in my grandma or grandpa. So, keep all the characters in your chart. Like you have this table in your textbook, write all these characters in the table. First one, take it as color of eye, color of hair, shape of nose, shape of the face, type of earlobes, type of hair, inner thumb marking, skin color. You can add few more characters also. And how is that you are going to complete this activity? In me, for example, if you take in me, the color of eye in me is black. In my mother is black. Father, it is also black. Whereas in my brother and sister, it is black. If your grandma and grandpa are alive, you can just write what is the color of their eye. Similarly, please complete the entire table comparing the characters to you, your parents and your grandparents. Now, these are the questions which are related to your table, that is activity 1. So, these are the answers which are the example answers which I have given so that you can complete the work in your textbook. And children, the answers may vary. So, make a note that the questions are same to everybody but the answers may vary. These are the answers. Is there any character similar to that of your mother as well as grandma? So, children, yes, according to the characters related to my mother and me and my grandmother, the 3 characters like the color of eye, color of hair and type of earlobes. These are the similar characters which are similar to my mother, my grandmother and me. Now, is there any character in you similar only to that of your grandma? Yes, especially shape of the face, inner thumb marking. Now, how do you tell the shape of the face? Children, usually whenever you go to any function, most of your relatives usually tell you, hey, you look like your grandmother or your grandfather. So, in that way, we can compare ourselves. Next question, how this character is inherited by you from grandma? So, children, keep in mind, all these characters or traits are passed on from parent to the child. So, children, today you have learned another new word, that is traits. Traits are nothing but characters only. Is there any character not present in grandma but present in you and your mother? Yes, the shape of the nose and type of the hair are similar to me and my mother, but it is not present in my grandma. Think from where your mother got the characters. Children, keep this in mind. This answer is common for everybody. That is, this character is the result of inherited traits transmitted from parent to progeny. So, keep in mind, the characters are inherited, that is transferred or from generation to generation. So, the answer is, the character is the result of inherited traits transmitted from parent to progeny. So, children, this is another activity which is present in our textbook, activity 2. Over here also, you need to involve your classmates. So, name of your friend. Next is color of the skin. Next is earlobes free or attached. Marking of inner side of the thumb. Length of the forehead. Color of the eyes. Any other features. So, you can write in the first column the name of your friend. Next is color of the skin. So, over here the first column, the name of your friend, we have taken few examples. So, the name of the friend is Ravi. It may vary in your class also. So, you can write the friends which are present around you. You can write the color of the skin. It is black, fair. Okay. So, Ravi, the color of the skin is black. Earlobes are free or attached. So, children, if you observe the ears of any person, the earlobes are free or attached. You can easily understand how you can make out earlobes are free or attached. Marking of the inner side of the thumb. If you see your thumb, you can see some circle-like structures on the thumb. So, those are the inner side of the thumb, that is markings on the inner side of thumb. Next one is length of the forehead. Some people will have a broad forehead, whereas some people will have a narrow. And next, color of the eyes, that is the cornea. Some people will have blue, black. So, any other features, you can just write over here which are some other features like the straight hair, long nose and face, etc. So, children, you have to fill this activity. Take at least 5 to 6 members of your friends and complete this chart. And in the next slide, we have the questions related to this activity. Compare your characters to that of any of your friend. How many characters did you find were similar among you and your friend? So, children, in the earlier table, we have made the table which is consisting of the characters of you and your friends. So, what is he asking in the question? Compare the characters which are similar with you and your friend. So, are all the characters similar? No. Only few characters like the black hair, black eyes will be similar with you and your friends. Do you share more similar characters with your parents or with your friends? So, children, it's a general understanding that we share more similar characters with our parents than our friends. Do you think that your differences from parents are same as the differences from parents? Why and why not? So, the differences from parents are not same as the differences from friends because the differences from parents are subtle and there is more genetic relation. So, children, the parents and the children, the characters or the differences will be little bit simple or they will be very clear. But when it comes to the characters when compared to you and your friends, they are apparent. So, the answer is the difference from parents are not same as differences from friends because the differences from parents are subtle as there is more genetic relation with the parents when compared to the friends. Activity 3. Children, this activity 3 is present in your textbook. So, let us discuss about it. We have to observe some seeds like peas and bean pod. We have to make some differences. What are the differences and what are the questions related to the activity? Let us discuss. Can you find two similar seeds there? So we have seen two seeds, the seeds of the peas and seeds of the bean pod. Do you see or do you observe any two seeds which are similar? So the answer will be no. No seeds are similar. So all seeds are not similar. They had certain variations. Now what makes them vary? They vary from one another because they are produced from different ovules. So children, in the topic reproduction, we have discussed that ovules are present in the ovary, nothing but the gynoecium, the female part of the plant. So the ovules are present inside the ovary. Now ovules of a plant are nothing but female gametes. The gametes carry different factors, that is genes. So keep it in mind, what are the different factors which are present on the gametes? The genes. So gametes carry different factors, that is genes, for different characters randomly. So next question is, why are variations important? How are variations useful for an organism or a population? So variations are nothing but different characters or new characters are formed. Just imagine if there are no variations. If there are no variations, the next organism formed from the parent will be like the exact Xerox copy of the parent, and it will be very difficult to make a difference. Why are variations important? Variations help certain group of organisms in a community when conditions would otherwise be unfavorable for the other groups. And desirable variations can be selected by nature. As we have discussed earlier, nature will select the characters which are useful for the species. And as a result, the new species acquired by the organism will develop into a new species. So variations are useful in the production of new species. Desirable variations increase the chance of survival of the organism. As the organism acquires new characters due to the environmental conditions also, survival chances increase in the organism. Now, accumulation of variations after a long period leads to the formation of new species. And children, as we have discussed earlier in this class, that the new variations formed in an organism will lead to new species, and the formation of new species is continuous and it is a slow process. Gregor John Mendel. Let us discuss about Gregor John Mendel. He is the person who made an enormous amount of study in the field of genetics. So he is called as father of genetics. And children, he worked on pea plant. He worked on pea plant, and the botanical name for pea plant is Pisum sativum. Now, what is the major work Gregor John Mendel worked? Gregor John Mendel mainly worked how variations are passed from one generation to the other generation. So, he worked for 7 years in the monastery, and he also worked on the pea plant, that is Pisum sativum, and conducted the experimental work, which he presented his experimental data in the form of a research paper. Now, these are the 7 pair of contrasting characters. So children, this table is present in your textbook. You can go through it, and this gives the main 7 pair of contrasting characters which are given by Mendel. As we have discussed now, Gregor John Mendel worked for nearly 7 years and brought out new characters, that is nothing but the 7 pair of contrasting characters. He based his experimental work on these 7 pair of contrasting characters and conducted the further experiments in the field of genetics. As we can see here, it is character, dominant trait, recessive trait, and these are the ratios which were given out during the process of crossing overs. Now let us see the characters. So these are the flower color. Next is flower position. In flower color we have purple color and white color. Children, let us discuss what is dominant trait and recessive trait. So dominant trait means the trait which is expressed during the crossing over. So when the parents are crossed and when the progeny are formed, the character which is expressed in the progeny, that character is called as dominant trait. And the character which is not expressed, that means the character which is hidden, that we call it as recessive trait. So keep it in mind, dominant trait is always expressed whereas recessive trait is hidden. Now when the flower color, dominant character is purple whereas white is recessive. Dominant is expressed, white is hidden. Flower position, axial and terminal. Children, when it is axial, the flower will be on either side of the axis, main stem, on either side of the main stem. Whereas it is terminal, the flower will be on the tip of the stem. So axial flowers are the dominant traits, whereas terminal flowers are the recessive traits. Next are very simple characters. Seed color, that is yellow and green. Seed shape, that is round and wrinkled. And shape, pod shape, inflated and constricted. Then pod color, over here it is green and yellow. Stem length, tall and dwarf. So children, go through the table and understand the 7 pair of contrasting characters which are very useful for our further study in this topic. Why Mendel chose garden pea as his experimental plant? So children, we have discussed that Mendel has discovered the 7 pair of contrasting characters based on the study conducted on Pisum sativum, that is the pea plant. Now there will be many specialities on the pea plant, that is why he has conducted the experiments. Let us discuss what are the major points that he conducted the experiments on Pisum plant. So the major points are well defined characters. That means because of this well defined characters, he was able to bring about the 7 pair of contrasting characters. Now it is a bisexual flower. Children, we have discussed in your lower classes that bisexual flower means both, that is the male and the female parts are present in the single flower. In detail, we can tell that androecium and gynoecium are present in the single flower. So we call it as a bisexual flower. If it is a bisexual flower, then the mode of reproduction or the process of reproduction will be very easy, predominantly self-pollinating. Children, because it is a bisexual flower, self-pollinating process will be easy because androecium and gynoecium are both present on the same flower. Next, it is suitable for cross-pollination. Along with self-pollination, cross-pollination is also possible in pea plants. Next, it is an annual plant. What do you mean by annual plant? Annual plant, nothing but year. In annual plants, the germination process will be only for 1 year. So as a result, we can study more about the annual plants. That means the life cycle will complete in 1 year. So new plants can be produced, more plants can be produced, and the study can be more elaborate. Let us discuss what is homozygous versus heterozygous. Homozygous, it inherits 2 similar alleles from the parents for a particular gene. So what do you mean by this? That means the 2 characters, 2 alleles, that is one from the male parent and one allele from the female parent are transferred to the progeny. That is a tall gene, a tall allele, one from the parent, a tall allele, one from the mother and one from the father. 2 alleles are transferred to the progeny. So you can see over here capital T and capital T. Children, keep this in mind as it is very important to you. Homozygous. Homo means same. The alleles are same over here. That is capital T, capital T. One capital T is given from the mother and the other capital T is given from the father. So the 2 alleles are given from both the parents. And if the 2 alleles are same, then we call it as homozygous. And as we have discussed in the earlier class also, if the dominant trait, we call it as capital T and capital T, as tall is a dominant trait. So we are writing it as capital T and capital T. The recessive trait is short. The recessive trait is short. We are writing it as small t and small t. So children, keep it in mind, tall is a dominant character, short is a recessive character, and we are writing tall as capital T and capital T, short as small t and small t. Now heterozygous. Heterozygous, hetero means different. Over here you can see the alleles are different. That is capital T and small t are present. 2 alleles are present but they are different. One is capital and one is small. Now children, you might be confused. Capital T and small t is there. So is it tall or is it short? So as we discussed earlier, only the dominant character will be expressed. That means this will be a tall plant only. So capital T and capital T is a tall plant. Small t is a short plant, whereas capital T and small t is a tall plant. We have to say that capital T means homozygous tall, small t means homozygous short, capital T and small t means heterozygous tall. We will discuss about this in our later classes. Children, let us discuss what we have learned till now. So, we have compared the traits which are similar to your parents, brother, sister and grandparents. Nothing but the traits which are similar with your family. And we also observed some of the characters related to the friends, and we also made a table. We observed the seeds in pea and bean pods. And majorly, we discussed about Gregor John Mendel, who is called as father of genetics, and we discussed about the 7 pair of contrasting characters. Children, improve your learning. Please make a note of these questions. That is, what are the characters Mendel selected for his experiments on pea plant? We discussed now what are the 7 pair of contrasting characters and what are the characters Mendel selected. What is homozygous and heterozygous condition? And write about the 7 pair of contrasting characters in detail. For better understanding of the topic, please visit our official website SCERT. Thank you.